Hey, everybody. Really excited for this next guest from a global communications powerhouse known as Mitel. Jonathan, how are you?
I am good, Evan. How are you?
Doing well. Right in the midst of summer, second half of the year starting now. So, really excited to catch up with
Yeah,
my all things Mitel. Before that, maybe introduce yourself or your
yeah.
role and how do you describe Mitel these days?
Um, so Jonathan Buckle, I am VP of the Americas. Yeah, it's June already. Where does time go, Evan? Um, yeah, what's going on at Mitel? Well, quite a lot right now, and it's all good. So I've been here a couple of years, no bad days to report yet, Evan. So as long as I can keep that record going, things are good.
Indeed. And you guys have been on a tear in innovation and announcements and partnerships globally. So lots going on. When you look at the communications landscape, how do you describe where Mitel fits on that landscape at the moment? And maybe describe the competitive perspective as well. It's a category that's been changing a lot the last few years, and you've been really doubling down on your positioning and leadership.
Yeah, well, I think in IT, just generally change is constant because ultimately that's what IT does enable. I think really, we're in the hybrid space, and some of those decisions were taken years ago from the organisation, and I think now what we're seeing, with our customers and in the industry is this, hybrid is actually very top of mind for a lot of the, all customers today, whether they're small, medium, or enterprise size. I think that's one of the critical things we see, just right now. And I think that just generally the world has been either, one or the other. You're on-prem or you're cloud in going back a few years, and now this hybrid category is very real. But with a lot of, you could say our competitors, they're either one or the other, and they try to blend it, but there's always some compromises when you try and do that. But with Mitel, there's absolutely no compromises. I mean, we genuinely can do hybrid, where people put our solutions. We actually, don't really care. It could be on-prem, it could be private cloud, it could be public cloud. What we do know is it works seamlessly in all those modes, and you can mix and match, which gives Mitel a real clear lane with the customers that are looking for that type of solution.
Brilliant. Well, the benefits of such a broad solution are pretty obvious, but also given all those different deployment models, how do you help IT teams cut through the complexity and land on the right model, maybe the right answer for them without getting lost in so much choice, so many options?
Yeah. Easy to say, hard to do in practice. But what we try and do is get thinking about, the customer scenario and putting ourselves in, the customer's shoes to a certain extent. We spend a lot of effort in our discovery with our clients and customers and through our partners as well. There is a tendency to rush to a solution. It's this box, it's this widget. That's just IT in general. And we generally love tech. I think you love tech. I love tech. But I think one of the significant advantages we have is that we've always been a vertical focused business. So we know a lot, not everything, but when we go and engage with any type of customer, we have a lot of knowledge about the vertical they operate in, whether that be healthcare or government, you name it. We'll probably talk about that in this session, Evan. But we know a lot, but we don't know everything. So you have to, understand that organization, and as best we can, we try and, fit ourselves in and, go broad with the stakeholders that we engage with, because there's many people who have a say in these decisions these days. Numbers of, people on, buying committees is growing and growing. I had an example just yesterday of nearly 60 people from a customer being invited to a discovery kickoff. That's a
Wow.
lot of meetings to get through. But honestly, we will invest 60 meetings and 60 hours, because then we'll be able to help the customer actually go on the right path and the right journey. So we have a best practice. We like to identify specific use cases and, take the agile approach as we deploy them. And I think where we see the biggest impact for our customers are in that sort of workflows and integration space, because that's where you get very quick wins and you often solve some of the biggest challenges that our customers have.
Love that. Another area you're particularly focused on investing in are frontline workers. So notoriously sort of underserved from many companies with regard to technology, undersupported, sadly, whether it's nurses or hotel staff or production floor teams. They're all central now to your strategy. What's your perspective there in terms of updating and refreshing their communications? How's that process going? And are you seeing traction in upgrading frontline worker communications?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're generally underserved as a community, right? And most of our customers are in this public community service business. Some of them are businesses like hospitality, clearly. But I think the view from between different organizations varies. Sometimes, they're part of, a project or an engagement for improvement, and other times they're not. Sometimes it's budgeted, sometimes it's not. I think, as I talked about how many people are involved, sometimes it's difficult to get consensus between groups when there's so many stakeholders. So, be careful what you wish for when, frontline workers are engaged. But genuinely, to understand how those people operate, you have to go and sit next to them and do it. I mean, I just need a laptop and a headset, and I am good. But we spent a few weeks recently with one of our customers where we sat with the operators in a healthcare organization. They play a very specific functional role. Now, we know this specific customer would like to improve that workflow and that process, but also the experience, not only for their patients, but also the internal members of the team. And until you sit there and observe it we were there for an entire day, or my team was there for an entire day, you don't really understand what you're trying to achieve and the outcome. So, a lot of the time with the customers where we're not engaged with the sort of, the line of business or the front line, a lot of the times we're educating the IT teams about, the art of the possible and some of the things we see from other customers. And we quite often refer, a local customer in the similar vertical where we might have done something along similar lines, just so they can hear it from, someone in the industry rather than, Mitel and the sales team here.
Brilliant. Looking at your website, your positioning is sort of communications without compromise, which sounds great. It sounds like a bit of marketing speak, though. When you're in the room with a skeptical IT director, that sounds like marketing. But what version of that story really cuts through, and how is it grounded in reality?
We've had this huge traction in, the frontline, as I said, the verticals where frontline workers are. So healthcare, education, retail more recently, hospitality for years and years. Obviously all the public sector. And, these are the areas where sort of the flexibility of our solution is sort of that advantage that we have. And there are skeptical people out there. And we all hate being sold to. We all absolutely hate it. And our approach generally is to really come up with good solutions that customers will buy. And that is probably more marketing speak again. But it's true in our own lives and in the world of business. Quite often, there's a lot of research done before anyone would engage the vendor or the partner or anybody involved in the sale, right? And so, we're not that type of organization that is, we're obviously driven by revenue and things like that. But honestly, customers will buy if you can solve problems or improve their business outcomes. And that's the way we approach it. And really what we've seen, particularly in the past 18 months, is this, and I mentioned it before, the integrations and workflow piece, we have a hugely compelling story there. But typically that's always been in the CC space, but we can deliver it in the UC space, which is where it has this big impact on the front line, that perhaps they've been omitted from, getting some of those benefits in the past.
Brilliant. Well, you guys have always been known to have a very practical approach, so definitely can see that working out well. You've gotten to know a lot of your customers. Probably there are too many customers to get to know personally, but without picking a favorite child, can you tell a customer story that really stood out to you and the team that kind of captures what you guys can do that perhaps others can't?
Well, I think culture in our organization is very good. And genuinely, and we are very proud of what we've achieved over the many years we've been in business. And I've not been here too long, not like many of our team members, but we finish a project and quite often we can take a step back and see an impact in, quite often a community that some of us reside in. Right. And I'll give you one example from recently, and there's lots of examples. So I suppose that's a good problem to have. And I can't name the customer, but we do a lot in education. And I remember a principal, of a school, a larger school, he wrote us this letter and he said the new phone system, I think he used the word transformational. And to a lot of us in this industry, it's a phone system. How can that be transformational? But it is in the workflows. If they've been on something that's, 10 years old or 15 years old, right? It creates a big impact for the, not only the admin staff, but the teachers and school security and everything like that. So that was great. And that was one school within this larger project. And then the project wrapped up and we had an email from the IT team, the project team that delivered it. And they basically said that our ability to adapt on all these challenges on the project, they used the word remarkable. So I remember two words, transformational and remarkable. And that's testament to, I think the passion, the commitment, the care that our teams and our partners actually put into these projects. Because, we've all sent kids to school, we stay in hotels, we need the government. We try and avoid hospitals, but the healthcare, we have to, sometimes we have to go. So I would say, we are in a good position with our references, the customers that are part of our Mitel user group. And quite often I would say that, this voice technology gets pushed down the priority list, but it is transformational. It is remarkable. And it is the critical workflow that a lot of organizations, still rely on. So, good from my perspective.
Well done. So on the sales side, let's talk about your sales approach. It's amazing this industry has such a variety of sales approaches, from going to a website and clicking and buying a communication service and never talking to a human being, to going to a one-person VAR around the corner that's sold telephony for 30 years and really almost a dinosaur. But you guys have reinvented your sales approach over the last number of years. How would you describe it, and what are you guys doing that maybe others aren't in this market, in the Americas?
Yes, we have put a lot of effort into re-engineering, you could say, our sales workflow, to put it in the context of this conversation, Evan. I would say, honestly, we don't take anything for granted. And you use the word brilliant a lot, and I love brilliant because I'm English British, right? And we say brilliant a lot. And I see it as three things, right? Very, very simply, in a buying decision from a customer, there's three things that I think are the most important, right? Does the solution fit the requirements of their business? And I'm alluded to the fact that we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that we fully understand. You'll never get everything, but as much as we can about the impact of the solution and what we're trying to achieve. So, that's number one. Does the product fit? Does it work? And, 99% of the time, if you've got a customer looking for what Mitel does, which is hybrid communications critical, then we're in good shape. The second piece of that, is it affordable? Right? Is the time to deliver it, does that meet the criteria of the customer? Because again, some of these things are complex. Can you actually execute on the project? Because we know many projects fail. So the second thing is like, commercially, is it viable? And, we have a strong position in that, and we understand the markets we operate in. We do operate in very price sensitive markets, right? We still offer perpetual licenses, because I've sat in front of customers who say, if you try and charge me OPEX, I can't buy your solution. So we listen to our customers and make sure that we can, not only deliver the products, but we have commercial solutions for them, because, again, certain businesses get funded in different ways. And then I think the third thing we focus on is the customer experience, right? Because even if you have the first two things right and the best product in the world, if your customer relationship or the experience is not strong or not world class, as I would say, brilliant, we could say, then the customer will pick something else. And I think far too often the service levels across, the world, and not just in IT sales, but in my personal life, are not good enough. And then you always try and seek out the businesses and the companies that do deliver that customer excellence. And that's what we strive for every day.
Brilliant. On the product side, you've had more announcements and releases, new products in the portfolio than I can name on one hand or two hands. So I won't try to list them all. But is there one in particular that you're seeing a lot of traction with and maybe solving a problem in the market that no one else is addressing?
Yeah, there's definitely one, and we do have a lot of products, I must admit. I came across one the other day that I never even heard of. But it's like embedded in things. So I'm like, all right, now I know. Anyway, so it has got a name. I just didn't know it as that name. I suppose the one innovation I'm most excited about is the WX. And that's a lot of R&D team is working very hard on that. I give them a hard time. They need to work faster. But I would say that most UC clients out there, and WX is our next generation UC client. I might have got that wrong with my marketing team, but that's how I see it. And most of them have been built, since the pandemic, for the knowledge workers. And they're getting to the point now, and I use them, don't get me wrong, but they're sort of complex, they're over-engineered. And you've got this feature creep amongst many different applications on the desktop. And, a lot of end users push back on them. And our WX solution is really going to flip the script on that, because it is designed for people using it every day, like whether that be frontline workers or knowledge workers. But I like the simplicity and the intuitive nature of the interface, because, if you've got to think about training when you're rolling things out, and what I'm used to as to what a nurse or a teacher is used to is very different, and the use case is very different. So simplicity, I think, is a good thing when everyone's trying to have complexity and add features. What we're really adding to it is basically the ability to trigger workflows from the client, right? So that integration and workflow piece, gets surfaced for the UC user in the WX client. And I think for a lot of customers on the front, particularly where they have a lot of frontline workers, that's been a frustration over recent years. And that's the gap we're really fixing with our WX solution that's due very shortly, because I know we're trialing it right now with a number of customers and internally.
Fantastic. So taking a look at the broader communications landscape, you've acquired and built a lot of additional market share. Categories are being redrawn. Legacy vendors are exiting the market. Where do you see Mitel in the next 1 to 5 years even? Where do you hope to be?
I got to pick up on this. Hope is not a strategy. That's what a book I read once. So, where do I see ourselves in 5 years? If we get everything right, there's an if and a but in that. But I'd say we own the hybrid and vertical categories we operate in. I think there's going to carry on being consolidation, perhaps in the cloud space and things like that. There are so many vendors, but we would own the spaces that, we want to own because we're, basically de facto, and we'll never take that for granted. But, if you're looking for our type of solution, then that's where I see, because honestly, our true competitors that can do hybrid are deciding they don't want to do that anymore. And so we've seen exits from the market, we've seen strategy changes with some of our competitors, and so some of those customers in these verticals, particularly that we operate in, are not say that we've had such a surge. Like, one of my biggest challenges as we go into the second half of this year is just keeping up. Like, it really is keeping up with many customers that want to engage with either Mitel and our partners, just to solve some of the problems they face.
Well, exciting times. Congratulations on all the success, and onwards and upwards.
Thank you, Evan. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everyone, for listening, watching. Also, be sure to check out our TV show, techimpact.tv, on Bloomberg Television and Fox Business. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.